Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Smith to speak on today's bills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me first of all thank you for co-sponsoring and Elliot Engel a resolution that Karen Bass and I have put together, HRES 128. I want to thank Mike Kaufman for his leadership. It's been extraordinary on this resolution as well. Thank you, Mike. This resolution is like a mirror held up to the government of Ethiopia on how others see them, and it's intended to encourage them to move on reforms. Ethiopia is an important ally and partner in international peacekeeping. However, the continuing violations of human rights are absolutely unacceptable. I would note that the country reports on human rights practices couldn't be more clear, put out by the U.S. Department of State, and they cite serious human rights violations, including arbitrary arrests, killings, and torture committed by security forces, restrictions on freedom of expression and the freedom of association, politically motivated trials, harassment, and intimidation of opposition members and journalists. And when you read the report, it is like an indictment against the government of Ethiopia. Let me say to my colleagues that just yesterday I sent a letter to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services on behalf of Demsu Abebe to get his family humanitarian parole to enter the United States and to remove the threats expressed to them by government forces. Demso was a track star, a world-class track star, who was tortured by the Ethiopian security forces in a way that made his ability to run go away. They tortured him on his feet so he couldn't run. I mean, that is so despicable, and it's just part of what I think is a very malevolent attitude towards people who disagree with them on human rights. I spoke to him in person on this. We had him at a press conference, and again, his story was absolutely compelling. Another victim of government torture, Abaguya Deke, testified at our subcommittee's hearing on Ethiopia on March 9th. Abaguya is disabled and headed a government organization for disabled persons in Ethiopia. When he refused to join the ruling party or to sign off on what he described as the misuse of donated equipment for disabled people, he was jailed and made to crawl around his cell without his wheelchair, and in a subsequent imprisonment, he was taken from his cell and left in a forest without his wheelchair to die, vulnerable to wild animals. Fortunately, he was able to set a fire and was saved by some kind people who spotted the fire and came to his aid. These are not actions of a government that respects human rights, as they say they do, and they have a very good PR campaign, I have to admit, but it's all about the deeds, not the words, and the deeds, again, continue to be, I think, egregious. My staff and I, Greg Simpkins and I, first traveled on one of many trips to Ethiopia in 2005, and I can tell you we have been trying to get this government to respect fundamental human rights. And one of the findings or the Sense of Congress statements is that we want individuals to be held accountable for gross violations of human rights in Ethiopia through appropriate mechanisms, including using the new Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act to hold those individuals to account. Again, I want to thank the 50 members who have co-sponsored, and I do hope the members will support the resolution.